Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the Econobox garage. And in this week's episode we'll continue with our Bugeye build. Now that the metal work is all done on the floors, I can get them seam sealed and painted. So that's on the agenda for this week. Once that's done, I'll have another look at the back end of the car to see what we have to do there. And then get on with some cleaning of suspension bits. So I hope you enjoy the video. Now that the floors are all welded in and I'm on hiatus from not doing any other metal work until some parts arrive, it's time to get going with the seam sealer and POR 15. Initially I'm just going to do the floor pan area on both sides. Well, first of all I'm going to give the area a good clean. I'll mask off around these joints so that I can get a nice neat row on the seam sealer, and we'll get going that. So that's our first step for this week. So here are the products I'm using to seal up the bottom of the car. I'm using Dominion Sure Seal brush-on seam sealer, and then I chose the POR 15 product and can go directly over rust, and is also a rust preventative coating. And I'm using the POR 15 cleaner degreaser to make sure I can get as clean as possible. I will put links to all of these products in the description below. Well, in an earlier video, you may have noticed a bunch of filler and stuff on one part of the boot floor, and that was in this area here. It was a little bit odd because the rest of the floor is fine, but I took some time and started chipping off that filler or undercoat or whatever it was, and it turns out that it's covering up a whole bunch of wrinkles, and so I assume that there's been a bit of an impact on the back. Now, it doesn't appear to be any cracks or gashes or anything in the floor itself. It's obviously buckled. It's supposed to be nice and straight through here. You can see another buckle in here. You compare that to the other side. I've ordered this panel replacement here, the shut panel for the other side, and this piece across here. Now when I get all of this off, it will allow me to get in and attempt to straighten out the boot floor a bit more than it has been. That'll have to wait for a bit because it's probably going to be a couple of weeks before these parts arrive. In the meantime, I've got the floor with this first coat of POR 15 on it. It's all nice, really nice to have it all one color. So there will be a second coat going on of the POR 15, and then I'll be putting some bed liner on top of that. I'm going to clean up all the rear suspension, so the brackets for the dampers and the springs and what have you, and I'll get all that cleaned up and we're ready to go back in. I was a little disappointed when I discovered this, but on the plus side, as I said, I'm getting that panel and replacing it anyway, so it'll give me access to there to fix up any dents. So on another note, I redid the project board. It still has a lot to add on. I just realized I haven't put on rebuild the carburetors, but I'll definitely add that on there. So all the stuff that I've already accomplished, I've just basically erased. And then, so basically what I've done is I've just reorganized the whole panel here to get into a little bit more detail, and I'm sure there's more stuff I'll have to add as I go along. I think this will help keep me on track. And one of the targets for the Bugeye is to be driving it by Labor Day 2021. Well, now that the floors are basically done, the next task will be to get all this lot clean. So this is the entire rear suspension. So there's the 2 quarter elliptical springs, the 2 radius arms, the 2 check straps, and the 2 dampers. Here's the upper spring plates that I had a lot of fun with. You can see where this is. I've sawn these off here. They didn't want to undo from those spots there. This was the first one I did, and the first bolt got my hopes up because it came out all right. The other one sheared off at the top. So I think if you look back at an earlier video, you'll see the challenge I had with getting this one out. So I'll put a link to that video up in the corner. I'm going to clean all these up, get a coat of paint on what I can. I've done a quick check on the dampers and they seem to be really good. So I think it's just going to be a matter of cleaning those up and perhaps topping up the fluid or changing it. So that's going to be the next thing to do over the next little while. And then once this back suspension is done, I can get to work on all the bits for the front. So let's get out the brushes and the cleaner, and we'll get to work. I think I'm going to tackle the dampers first. So I would have to say it was a productive couple of hours with cleaning up the rear suspension parts. I still have to get to the links for the dampers. I'll get to those before we put everything together. The brackets for the damper and the radius arms will get a coat of paint, as will the springs and the radius arms themselves. The damper bodies, I understand, stay unpainted, but the arms will get a coat of black paint on them. So I don't get things mixed up on the springs. I've just put a zip tie on one of them, so I know that I just know that that's the driver's side, so that way the springs will go back on in the same spot. So overall, I'm very happy with how that's come out. Next up will be cleaning up all the front suspension bits, but that'll wait for the next video. So I thought I would take a little time to answer a couple of questions I've had regarding the rotisserie and positioning of the body on it. At the front, the center line of the pivot here is 9 inches above the line that goes across the front of the frame here. So that's the front, and as we head around to the back of the car, the pivot point here pretty much is even with the center line of the lower lights. That's where these bolts go through. If I were to redo this, I would probably mount it just a little bit differently. I would put the body of the car a little bit higher relative to the center line of the pivots on each end. With the bulk of the weight of the car being fairly low, the center of gravity is a little lower, and I think I'm just a little bit above it. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Bugeye Build in the Econobox garage. I'm glad you're able to join me this week. Please be sure to like, leave a comment or a question, subscribe, and then hit that little bell icon so that you'll be notified when the next videos come out. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you next time.